Good morning. Welcome to Unity of Boerne. This is a place where you'll be nourished and uplifted and fed spiritual food that is truly subsisting and most importantly, feeling the love that we are. It's so good to be back for 2 weeks, and I hope you are blessed by what we do here. And if you are, I invite you to send your gifts via the PayPal button at the bottom of the page, or by mail to Unity
That's
of
why
Boerne,
I don't want to do it.
Box 1973, Boerne, Texas 78006. That's Unity of Boerne, P.O. Box 1973, Boerne, Texas 78006. We need to be real intentional about this because we right now, like any other ministry, are facing shortages of money, and this is the lifeblood of what we do as ministry, especially in an online way like this. And I know it's so easy to sit at home right now and say, I'm in my jammies, I've heard this, and I'm having my coffee and I'm watching Unity of Boerne. But please also remember we have financial obligations to meet, and I invite you to give your best gift as you are able this morning. We're about to start. Thank you for tuning in. Blessings to you.
Good morning. We're going to start this morning. Welcome to Unity of Boerne. We're going to stand. We're going to sing our joy song. What are we singing?
We're going to sing Love is the Answer.
122.
Joy, joy.
around, find somebody and say, "You look amazing."
Wonderful too. You all look.
Please be seated. So I do have some announcements for you this morning. My paper says here that my name is Thom Allen. Actually, it's not Thom Allen, and this is not Melinda. So Melinda wasn't feeling well, and so we need to be nice to Thom because he's had about 3 hours to kind of get everything straight. So we wish Melinda the best, and be well soon. I want to bring a few things to your attention. Our annual meeting, I think we set a date for our annual meeting, is February 20th.
Yep.
That's also going to be potluck day. So if you want to get a quick something to eat, and we'll have our annual meeting. It shouldn't be too long. It won't be hours and hours. It'll be as quick as we can possibly do it. If you want to vote, you need to be a member. If you want to be a member, you need to fill out a card in the back of the sanctuary. So they're back there. You can fill those out.
What day?
February 20th.
February 20th.
February 20th. Like I say, it won't be huge. It won't be long. I do want to tell everybody that all of our online offerings, we have 3 Course in Miracles groups going on, we have book study going on, we have Pathlighters, all the login information, all the listing of all the courses that's going on. There's a Facebook page, it's also in our website. I think you might also have it in your order service. That's where that may be there. I don't know that I have much in the way else. Does anybody know anything that I don't know? If not, we've got a daily word reader. Who is it? Looks like Miss Ann.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As we quietly and gently prepare for the reading of the daily word, remember that we're in spirit with meetings of daily word readers in churches throughout the world. The Christ candle is lit as a reminder of the Spirit of God within all of us, which we call the Christ within. The word for the day is pray for others. The affirmation is, I am praying for you. Just hearing the words, I am praying for you, helps me relax into a calm strength of a trusted friend's faith. Reassured, I feel my own faith growing stronger. My friend may be next to me or calling from afar. The power of prayer is undiminished by distance so. Grateful for the gift of others' prayers for me, I welcome every opportunity to pray for anyone who asks. Having heard the prayer need, I let go of concern. In faith, I behold the Christ presence within the one for whom I pray. Knowing the truth of another's wholeness, I release any thoughts of illness. I affirm divine wisdom, guiding important decisions, and divine strength, relying on any weakness. I feel the warmth of God's love bringing peace and restoring hope to those I hold in prayer. Okay, and it comes from 1 Thessalonians 1:2. We always give thanks to God for all of you and mention you in our prayers. The affirmation for today is, I am praying for you. My name is Ann Gulley, and we thank you for joining us in worship today.
Thank you, Ann.
Reminder for everybody that there is a sign up in the back to do daily word reading, and we're trying to kind of fill that up like a month or so ahead of time, give our secretary as much warning as she can get. So share yourself with the congregation and read the daily word every once in a while. Here we go. We're going to keep going here. We're going to stand for our congregation affirmation, and we can affirm that together.
Could we but see the pattern of our days, we should discern how devious were the ways by which we came to this, the present time, this place in life, and we should see the climb our soul has made up through the years. We should forget the hurts, the wanderings, the fears, the wastelands of our life, and know that we can come no other way or grow into our good without the steps our feet found hard to take, our faith found hard to meet. From turn to turn, until we come to know the truth that life is endless and that we forever are inhabitants of all eternity.
We're going to stay standing for a minute. We're going to do our celebration song, number 222.
My life for me begins today, new worlds before me lie. The yesterdays have passed away, no more to cause a sign. Before me lies the bright today, all blessings in its whole. And I rejoice to find life's way, sing its joys untold. Today for me begins anew, a life that holds for me all that is good and real and true. His blessings now I see. I look no longer to the past, nor wait for future days. For with today my lot is cast, His presence joys I praise.
Let's stand just for a second longer. We're going to do our opening prayer together.
Unity of Boerne is a vibrant, loving, spiritual community, providing a sacred space for personal growth. We honor and celebrate Christ within all people.
Please be seated. So everybody should have a prayer card in the order of service. We'll take a minute if you want to fill that out while somebody maybe brings up the prayer box for our blessings. Those are prayed for locally here for a week. They're also sent up to Unity Village where they're prayed for a month. And who could I convince to come up? Mr. Jim Luke, maybe?
Prayer is language of the heart. And we know that sometimes, many times, we are actually praying when we think we're walking through our lives. Our lives, as has been said, are a prayer. And then there are instances that call us to prayer that we know people go through as well as ourselves. And it is in this spirit of the united, loving, mental intention that is here in this church that I ask you to focus your attention and know in this area, this box right here, that the perfect will of the divine is being done. Infinite presence, we give thanks for the ability to communicate, recognize, realize the truth of our being. We do this through this communication called prayer. We know this language of our hearts. We ask that you bless those that have put prayers in this box, those that have need, those that have joys, those that have celebrations, those that have concerns, those that are going through heartbreaking experiences. We know your perfect will is being done right now in these lives. We affirm that your will is being done in these lives that are represented by the prayer requests here in this box. We ask for this, the highest good that you bestow, and so it is. Amen.
Well, it was a bit of a rush job. I noted that Melinda was going to sing about pointing at the sun, and I thought about that. And I said, oh, the sun, you know, in ancient religions, the sun was God. God was somehow in part of the sun. He bestowed all the light on earth and its inhabitants. And that light just makes me think about that love. And I'm not entirely, I haven't really picked Jay's brain for what his message really entails, but I know one answer for the fear that I feel from time to time. There's a saying that there's no such thing as fear. There are only fearful thoughts. And when we entertain them, we enter what people call a fearful state. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because it's human to experience fear in all emotions. It's really important, though, that they not take over. And you don't deserve that. You were born for better than that. So I want to tell you about what happens when I wake up in the morning. Woke up this morning, my feet hit the floor. I knew I didn't want to walk that road that way no more. I am the one I dream I am, the one with the one I am, and I'm always the one I made myself to be. So I let go all the blame, the things that don't serve me. Felt my breath moving in that moment. I know free. I am the one who breathes in energy, the one who moves in synergy, the one with the one that made and lives through me. So I asked it of my soul, gave it space in my heart, felt my spirit stirring in that breath I heard. I have the love of one we are. I feel the love of God I start. I feel the love of God that keeps us whole and part. And I saw my brother reaching out for me to grow, needing reassurance that deep inside his heart he really knows we are the light of God. I know that every part of one great glow. And the good light is no further than my door. And I see my sister reaching out to feel free, just what she knows in her heart is real. The ties that bind are the ones we feed. Bonds that grow are the ones we feed. Turn our thoughts to God and just let our hearts lead. So when you wake up in the morning, give grace for your new day. Listen to your breath of life. Let the first thing that you say be I am the one, and be my am. The one with the one I am. And I'm always the one I make myself to be. I am the one who breathes in energy, one who moves in synergy. I am one with the one who made and lives through me. I was the one we are. I see the smile in every star. I feel the love of God that lives here in my heart. I should add that it was actually this family, this community that brought those words to my heart. So put them on paper, I give them back. I wrote that.
It's amazing.
Wow.
I love it. The music, the letter, everything.
Thank you.
You should have a CD.
Sure.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's been 2 weeks, and I've missed you all so much. And when I was doing something out of an abundance of caution because it was possible I had been around this, that, whatever, and I took that time and decided that I'd try to make it work for me. And all I could think about was how much I wanted to get back here. And so I did some writing and some thinking and some resting. I feel great. I appreciate Jeannie Brocious King and Rick Busby doing such a good job in my absence. Let's say it's wonderful to be home again. This morning, I got a phone call about 9:30 from our social communications director, Bertie Shalker, who told me that the message title that I had chosen for this morning was not being allowed to be used on Facebook. In other words, we got popped by the Facebook police. And the name of the message was The Many Uses of Fear. But she turned it around and said, how about facing fear? And I said, that works, because we'll get the point across if you tune in, and I know you are right now, and we'll do the same thing. But the title, I wanted you to know that so you can understand some of the things that I'll be speaking about and why I think we can use fear to our advantage. But just that title didn't seem to work. So facing fear, that's the top topic this morning, and I want to speak of it from a point of view of the metaphysical ideals, and that's what we do here every Sunday. We speak of life as it could be. I don't say life as it should be, because that is for you to decide. But the wonderful possibilities inherent with all of us are the abilities primarily to choose between two emotions, love and fear. And it is said in A Course in Miracles that everything else that we see falls under the purview of those two emotions. So we're either acting out of love, we are giving love, or we are giving a call for love. And in between the times that we do that, we live in a world that seems to rotate on fear, guilt, judgment, punishment, blame, go down the list. And we wonder why it doesn't work. Why are we still at this advanced part of our civilization facing the sharp divisions, not only in our country, in our world, but sometimes in our households? It was Napoleon Hill that said, fear is a devil to be conquered. Wonderful author of Think and Grow Rich, who talked about the six main ghosts of fear, of which death, poverty, everything goes down the line of the things that we pretty much know and we are apprehensive about in our lives. But I'm here to tell you this morning that using fear for your advantage, to your advantage, works miracles. And it can be done with a simple shift in thought. Of course, the miracle says all you have to do is change your mind. And that's true, but sometimes that's more easily said than done. It seems to me that there has to be a commitment to deciding to live a life that is not fear-based at its very essence. We all know people who almost seem to live in fear, and it's attendant anxiety. I've seen it in folks that I've counseled. I've seen it in institutional religion, which I think is a particularly pernicious form of fear, because I don't believe, and I don't believe that anybody else who really thinks about it, says that you can scare someone into a relationship with the divine. It's been tried for 2,000 years. We've seen the traditional church talk about you being a sinner in need of the atonement, in need of the shed blood of Jesus Christ to cover your sins and allow you entry into paradise. And the problem with that is there's a very circumspect group of people that accept that and then go out and project that on others who may not be in faith communities, and they hear that, and if they think about it for a little while, they think, blood, sacrifice, anger, guilt, judgment, I have enough of that right now in my life. I have enough fear, and now I have to fear the one who loves me unconditionally. If you had children, if you all are parents, and one of them came home to you and said, this person is in love with me, but he told me or she told me that I'm going to have to do A, B, C, D, and E, and I have to be in by this time and out at this time, and all these rules were attended to the relationship, you would say to your son or daughter, that's not the way this is supposed to be. We think that they had gotten involved with somebody who was psychologically upset, maladapted, that was controlling, and yet the very ground of our being, the very God essence in us, we're supposed to project those same attributes onto this God who wants to control us, who wants to tell us what to do, who is very angry and waiting for us to step out of line, and through a prayer of confession only takes us back grudgingly. Think about that and what that means for your own self-image and your own living in this world. It's toxic, it's wrong. But there is another way. The Course in Miracles says to choose once again, and I believe that. We choose in favor of love. In other words, we realize that these human-made constructs of fear, anxiety, and all the attendant negativity that goes with that is not something we wish to experience. Now, I'm not here saying that we need to have one universal theology, although I believe that that is important. I believe that that can come the more we move our precious darling selves out of the way that we've constructed over a lifetime that sometimes serve us and sometimes doesn't. And we're able to embrace a holistic way of living and being. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. The idea that we move away from those things that make us afraid. I'm not talking about the cautionary things we do, like locking our houses before we leave, or our cars when we get out of. These things we know are common sense things, and we don't generally obsess over them. What we obsess over a lot of times is ourselves. And are we doing it right? Are we getting it right? And I'm saying that fear-based living is toxic living. And it's not going to produce for you the true you, the genuine you. It produces an artificial prototype that is walking inside of lines that are prescribed for someone else, or prescribed by someone else rather, to make them feel comfortable with their own choice of life. In other words, you have ministers that project their own guilt and their own fear on their followers and say, you must do what I do, you must interpret God as I interpret God, have the relationship I have, and this is how you're supposed to walk within a narrow parameter, and you get out of line, you get out of favor. And if you get out of favor, you're going to risk receiving the wrath or at least the disapproval of others in the flock. If all of you remember, and I hope you do, Jonathan Livingston Seagull's wonderful book in 1970 by Richard Bach, where he talked about this one lone seagull who decided that he wasn't going to fly with the flock on the ground, or close to the ground rather. You know, he was a seagull that wanted to go way up high and test his wings, test his abilities. And yes, there were times in Jonathan's life that he crashed and he'd shake it off and get right up again and start flying. And he wanted to expound and expand on his God-given potential. And that's what we in New Thought, and especially here in Unity, that's what we're for. We want to see each person grow into what they can be, not what we think they should be. In other words, your choice, your ideas about your life are sacrosanct. We're here to help you develop your own special gift. Everyone has one. But unfortunately, in the world we live right now, there are so many entities that are trying to compact us and push us into little boxes of behavior. And I want to tell you this morning, blow out those boxes of behavior. I titled this message, The Many Uses of Fear, and one of the greatest uses of fear is to be sick of it, get over it, and make a decision that you're going to be better than you were yesterday, and today you're going to be better than you were today for tomorrow. You keep on doing it. Very few times do we just literally break out all at once. We have some conditioning to unlearn. We have some things to relearn. And one of the things that I want to offer to you this morning, the greatest use of fear that I have found in my life and seen, is the knowledge that it is truly F-E-A-R, false education appearing real. In other words, we bought the wrong merchandise from those who have sold it to us to make them feel better and them more comfortable with their idea of God. In other words, you've seen it generation upon generation. The same religious experience is handed down and people getting the same results they have and blaming the church or blaming God. God is as near as your next breath and as new as the morning. We get conditioned, and I want us to use this fear to break out of our conditioning so that we can live the life we're meant to live. We are on purpose here. We have some things to give this world that only we can give. And if we're hamstrung by fear, we're not going to be able to live the abundant life. We may be obedient to somebody else's idea about us. We may be able to say, I kept the rules, so to speak, those invisible lines that sometimes religion tells us we may not cross. And I'm not being, hopefully, I hope you understand, I'm not criticizing the people that are in that type of religion. What I'm criticizing or giving a critical eye to is the thought that perpetuates the idea that you are less than who you really are. In other words, that you were born in sin, you were conceived in sin, born in sin, you live that, you need the grace that only one particular church or another can offer. I want you to honor your own deepest ideas. When I heard this morning that the Facebook police had said you can't use the many uses of fear, I thought about the idea that when I sat down and thought about what I wanted to talk about, that was really the title I wanted to use. And I was a little frustrated by that because I believe that sermons or messages have integrity. And I believe that the people that deliver them should have that integrity. And when I sit down and think about titles, I mean them. And I mean something by them. So as we sort of this morning jump over the hurdle of the title versus the content, I hope you'll understand that what I'm really talking about is the ability, and this is where you really reach mastership, the ability to forgive those things that frustrate you, as I hopefully forgave it when Facebook police said you can't do that, and choose another direction and walk a new direction and realize that that's what's going on right now and has nothing to do with me or the heart of the message that I want to deliver. In other words, what I'm telling you is my precious darling ego was tied to the many uses of fear. I wanted you all to see that and hear that. I thought it was pretty good. And then all of a sudden somebody frustrated me and I began to lose my joy on I-10 a little bit. I thought, 2 weeks of being away from everybody I love, 2 weeks of going through some things that I didn't want to, and now Facebook tells me I can't use the title I want. I noticed I began to grip the steering wheel a little tighter. And I noticed that my breathing was just a little different. And I thought, who's doing this to you? Is it Facebook? No. It's my idea of how things should be. I trust the process, and I trust that what I'm supposed to say will come through, even sometimes my own clumsy words, sometimes my own inability to really reach out into your heart space. You know, there is this distance we have between us physically, but I'm telling you, it doesn't exist in spirit, and I trust that this morning. I trust that the circle of love that we are and that we vibrate to, not only in this state, but around this world by our intention, I believe that it works. And I believe there's nothing that can change that. There may be things in my human ego that I think can temporarily inconvenience me, but the intention, we're back to that word, the intention that I have will be met by the grace of a loving God that says we can get around this. And I've got this, don't worry about it, young man, or middle-aged man, or I don't want to go further.
Thank you.
And so, yeah. So what I'd like you to know is that truly, love is letting go of fear. Fear feels bad. And the use of fear to coerce yourself or other people is wrong. It's one thing to say to a person who's walking near an abyss, you're getting close, and I'm afraid you might fall in the river or fall over the edge. That's one thing. But to say that you've got to fear God because of who you are, basically because you were born and conceived in iniquity, that's quite something else. I view a church that is on fire with love. I view a church that has learned its lessons of 2,000 years that says, finally, this fear doesn't work. But right now, we're seeing so much fear in our world, and it's being mirrored back to us, that it's sort of like, I don't know that there's much out there except a few lone voices crying out in the wilderness, fear not. And in the Bible, Jesus said, fear not, many times. In fact, throughout all the scripture, throughout the Psalms and Proverbs, you hear the words, fear not. Why? Why did Jesus say, fear not? Fear not, for I have overcome the world. Was he talking about this world? Or was he talking about the world that is in spirit? Well, in spirit, there is no fear. There's only perfect love. So I take that to mean he meant this world. And how did he overcome it? By changing his mind. How did he do this? How did he use fear when he encountered it in other people? What was one of his many uses of fear, seeing fearful people? The answer is he saw the face of God in every person that he encountered. If we do that, if we look at each person through the eyes of the Christ Spirit, through the eyes of love, that's what we'll draw forth from them through what we call the law of attraction. Like attracts like. The old saying, birds of a feather flock together. There is some truth to that. Thoughts have an affinity for one another. When fearful people meet one another, you can bet there's going to be an expansion of fear. And when loving people come together, love expands. It's really pretty basically simple. But we complicate it because we believe what our ego tells us, that ours is a different case. But you see, I have something that nobody else is dealing with because it's so unique and personal to me. And I've got to tell you, there are very few brand new human stories. The human drama has been enacted so many times over thousands of years. We just feel like it's very personal. But it can be a call to us. We can use that experience to expand and not contract. I ask each of you this morning, do you have anything in your life right now that you are fearful of? Any particular thing or anything in general or free-floating anxiety, whatever it may be, you have anything that you feel is holding you back from being all that you're able to be, all that you're really called to be. You know, you're here on a divine mission. All of us are. And we get to choose our attitudes. We get to choose in favor of the love we are. So I suggest and submit to you this morning that using the events that are occurring outside of you in order to be a grander and more loving expression of who you are, excuse me, is the right thing to do. In order to grow, you have to be willing to break through some things that may be uncomfortable. Anybody ever seen one of those little green blades of grass popping through concrete? I still don't know how that happened. I've even seen some pretty flowers doing that. And they just sit in there alone sometimes and think, boy, you really had determination to shine. Well, if a flower can do that, we can do that. All we have to do is change our minds. Give up our mistaken certainties that we must be some way that somebody else says we have to be. Who said that? The person or the voice in our head? Parental voices, authoritative voices, voices we heard when we were children, voices that we accepted without critical thought because we were too young to know any different. And before you know it, and some of you have told me this, especially online viewers, they're living in a lane of fear their whole lives. And they get to a certain age and they say, I really don't know that I've lived an authentic life. Or as I quoted before in Ivan Ilyich by Dostoevsky, to come to the end of your life and say, I missed all the signals and I probably did it wrong for myself. And I don't want to die with my music still in me, but I feel like my time's run out. It never run out because you can change, you can choose. You live right here between these two spaces. Out here, you get information that teaches you how to do this right. Think about that. This world is a classroom with a curriculum designed for your ultimate growth. And you have a presence that walks beside you, though the worst goes before you. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, have an inner candle flame that doesn't flicker, though the worst goes before you. You see, there are some things, and we acknowledge them, that are very difficult, and they stretch us, and they push us, and sometimes they hurt. But we get to make another decision about that. Shall we live in hurt? Shall we sacrifice most of our lives to an idea that we're less than who we are? No matter where you are this morning, no matter who you are this morning, you have the ability to change right now. Can you do that? You can do it on a dime. The only problem is you have a story you've told yourself all the way up to this moment. And we go to therapy to have it deconstructed. That's what a therapist does, is deconstruct the story. Eventually, you're going to have to do it anyway. I can counsel, and I have so many times, and it gets to a point where the person has to decide that they have to deconstruct that story, and they have to tell themselves something different, and that it came to them for their highest good, and they can forgive it, and they can walk forward in newness of life. Isn't that what Christ Jesus talked about every time he met someone? Go forward and live in newness of life. I've come that you might have joy and have it abundantly. The kingdom of heaven is within. I get excited when I say these things because they are the words of life. They're the words of growth. They're the words of truth. And we celebrate truth here. This is what we do in this church. And I want to talk to those that are tuning in, especially our Pathlighters group. This is something for those of you that are new here. It is an online group that was formed by myself and our communications director, Bertie Schalker, so that we could reach out to those who are alone during this pandemic or could not move about as freely as they wanted to. They can tune in on their computer and they can receive the message that we talk about here at Unity of Boerne. It's been a wonderful success. Pathlighters is now more than a year and a half old. Our Course in Miracles group has grown. There's so many online offerings. There's so many places. What I'm trying to say is so many places that you can use to be uplifted and upheld instead of the sitting in front of the TV and watching everybody project fear. And I'd say this, I spend about 15 minutes with that television news and I can't take anymore. I don't know about you, but this 2 weeks that I had off, I was surprised some stuff I see on television. I wanted to go to the old movie channel. That's how bad it was. Because you listen to the news and you won't want to walk out of the house. And if you listen to it daily, you really get to the idea that nothing's going right. There's a lot that's going right now. Yes, we're dealing with some things that are stretching us and that are hurting us, and that we don't understand why it's particularly going on, but the answer is not to constrict further back and buy into that vibratory frequency of fear. We know it doesn't work in relationships. Remember the example I talked about, our own children who would come to parents and say, I'm with a controlling person, but it's for my good. When have we ever said that? When would a proper parent ever say it's good to be controlled? That it's right for you to live under the authority of somebody else. The only authority that you want to live under is the law of love, and that's the divine, and that's what puts you to sleep and wakes you up in the morning. And to get acquainted with that is to get acquainted with the greatest power in your life. I had to remember that and walk out of that room and say, I'm not going to give any more attention to all this stuff that's in front of me. Turn to a movie, open a book, take some time, play with the cats, do anything, but get away from hearing about how bad things are and what I can't do. No matter where I am, there is something I can do, and no matter where you all find yourselves, in any situation you can change your mind, choose once again, walk in newness of life, forgiving yourself for the fear that may have put you where you are, or the fearful voice, or the person who talked to you in a fearful way, the teacher who talked to you in a fearful way, and most especially the religious authorities who told you you were less than who you are. To me, that's particularly pernicious. To look at somebody in front of you and say, you are stained because of your birth. You need what we only can give. If you walk outside those lines, you can go to hell. Let's be honest, that's what's said. Don't we know the church has to grow up beyond that? Don't we know that there's a whole group of thinking people that would open these doors? We open these doors and it would blow this place open with people who know the truth of what I'm saying here. You're resonating to it. I know that, but you wonder, is it really good enough to be true? Yes, there's another way to live, and it is true. So I invite you this morning to make another decision about yourself, to use the fear that you may be feeling, no matter what it is, and realize that the only thing that's true about it is you're feeling a sense of separation from your source, which you can't be. So you see, that's not true either. There are very few things to be feared. There are a whole lot of things to be understood. And what you understand in yourself and in others can be the medicine, so to speak, that allows you a peaceful and loving life. Understanding why somebody says what they say or do what they do. Understanding the hidden agenda. Understanding the want of security and control by sometimes banding together in groups and saying, we have the only answer, and you better follow us. If I find anybody doing that, I want to run from it, and you should too. Because here at Unity of Boerne, you're going to hear about your possibilities, and you're going to hear about the love that you are. You're going to hear about years of what we've done here of uplifting, upholding, and blessing the best in people. We look for the best and we find it. I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I did a chaplaincy in a funeral home in the cemetery, the epitaph that I found on one of the graves that was behind the main building, and it was, ever she sought the best and ever she found it. Yeah, it takes a little bit of effort to look for it, but it's there if you find it. I mean, it's there if you'll look for it and you can find it. So this morning I challenge you, drop the fear. Drop the idea of anything that limits you in your mind. You are the one that lives inside yourself, and you get to make the choices. Take your power back. Turn the TV off if necessary. If you're in a relationship that you feel is toxic and you feel that it's not working, open a dialogue about it. Do something that begins to interrupt the flow and watch things change. I'm not talking about running out and getting angry at somebody and saying, I'm not going to take anymore. You might have to do that in some extreme instance, but I'm talking about being willing to open the dialogue with someone or some groups of someone who you have found you may feel have held you back. And let that communication be the beginning of something new. Behold, I stand at the door and knock with newness of life. Remember that? Always knocking, the Spirit is always there, asking us to come up higher. And this morning, I see each and every one of you coming up to the full stature of who you are in spirit. I see that. And hopefully I see you through the eyes of the Christ and the divine. I know I do. I must, because I love you all. And that's why I'm in ministry. Because I love people. And I particularly am blessed to love a congregation as wonderful as this. And if you're here for the first time, and I see some of you are, need to come back again, because the miracle is just beginning. We're awaiting a world that's waiting to be born. And we're going to give substance to that in this place, right here, every time we get together. God bless each and every one of you. It's wonderful to be back. And I affirm that your best is yet to be, and you make decisions in your life that are based not on fear, but on love and all its wonderful possibilities. And so it is. God bless you.
In the midst of his children, the Lord said he would be. It doesn't take very many, it can be just 2 or 3. And I feel that same sweet spirit that I felt oft times before. Surely I can say I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel His mighty power and His grace. I can hear the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
In this sacred and wonderful space we're in right now, not only physically, but in the very inside the skin we possess, we know that we're in the presence of love, that we're in the presence of the divine. We're in a special place inside ourselves, and we know it because we visit it on occasion. We do it here every Sunday, and we do it personally in meditation. We are familiar with this wonderful space inside us that understands all, that knows all, that doesn't even need to forgive all because it never blinked. And with our feet flat on the floor, perhaps our palms upraised, we prepare to visit this space right now. We take a deep breath. We center ourselves. We hear the strains of a forgotten melody. We don't maybe know the name of it, but we're familiar with it. It's a beautiful sound. The beautiful presence that's in front of us is the loving, holy presence of the divine. In this place, we're able to release all that is the lesser and embrace the greater, because we're loved. And we're called to be that love. Things that have hurt us this week, things that have perhaps hurt us longer. We claim new life in front of us right now. We forgive those hurts. We forgive them because we know that if we don't, we only impede ourselves. We're in a place where it's safe to receive this love, to feel its expansive wonder fill us. We wonder at the majesty and the awe of this presence inside us that understands us, that knows everything that we may hold against ourselves and perhaps others, and loves us and says that love is the answer, and that's all that's needed. We release all that is unlike that we want to experience. In the presence of this love, we take healing and health and place it where we need it. and our minds, our emotion, our bodies. We are healed now because we make the decision to release the lesser and claim the greater. And we know that love is the way we walk in gratitude. And we are thankful for being remade in this moment. And we purpose, we make a decision to walk in the newness of life that is love. Things that trouble us fall away in the brilliant, beautiful light of this love. We know the truth of the scripture, behold, I have loved you with an everlasting love. And we give that to ourselves. And we mirror that to others. We affirm new life, new possibilities, a newness of who we are. And we emerge from this moment refreshed and renewed, healed and whole, loving and loved. We feel this change taking place in us right now. And we give thanks that it is done to us as we accept and as we believe. And so it is. Amen. Now we come to that time in our service where we are literally blessed to be able to give and know that we receive as the blessed law of life. As you sow, so shall you reap. And so many times we find our gifts coming back to us in abundance, in larger forms than we have given. That is the law of the universe, abundance, giving and receiving. So I ask right now, usher to come forward and ask for you to give your very best gift so that we continue the work of Unity of Boerne in its various ministries.
Freely, freely I have received. Freely, freely I give. Divine love through me blesses all that I am, all that I give and receive. Freely, freely
Thank you all for your gifts, and together we say, divine love through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I send it forth with my blessings and my love. So
Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time?
Thank you for being here. The service is always more with you. I want everybody to thank Thom for stepping in and saving the day with no notice. Circle, big circle.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
together we say, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God upholds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
No mistake. Are you sure? Oh, whatever. Sounds wonderful. Okay, so I'll be there. What time is it? 12? Okay. I'll just change and come over. I remember how to get there. No, I'll take a shower.
Please feel free to Really? I just assumed, the doctor said as soon as I was
Instead of like a dog. So let us
I'm glad to see you here. No.
Anyway, she stayed there.
Oh, I see.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It hasn't arrived yet?
I got it on my granddaughter.
Oh,
Hi, Maria.
you're carrying a cookie.
I'm better than I was. Not as good as I'm going to be.
The first time.
It's been a strange 2 weeks.
I'm going to HEB and I'm going to go to that soup for myself.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Are busy.
What am I touching? Oh, because I said, this doesn't seem like, there was something.
I hugged her when she came in. She's like, oh my God. And I was, oh my God.
No, I thought maybe it's a special type of, the ducky kind of stands up your world, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So when we hear someone in the bells.
It's kind of a good Texas.
They're like slashing,
Anyway, I'm going to HB.
Yeah.
I'm going to HB. I'm getting.
Yeah. And I usually saw a couple of clubs of garlic. I ordered just a little, but in the apple, whatever they call for sour, you can try whatever, but I usually use the apples that I have, which is more like a little sweeter, not the sour kind. But whatever works. No, you can't. And then a little slice, like a little cayenne,
So when you're young,
So anyway, I'm very excited. This is the first time.
You're going to enjoy it.
No, but but
Jim?
sometimes. If it's a thing, just gather and whatever, and make something together. Because that's really the fun of it. And then you learn what you're doing, and